everybody. Welcome back to another election prediction. This time we have Pete Buttigieg, the Transportation Secretary in the Biden administration, up against former President Donald Trump. So I do think Pete Buttigieg has a pretty big problem, and that is minority turnout. He did quite terrible in the Democratic primary with minority voters. He only did like decent with just white voters in general. Like black voters, he did pretty much absolutely terrible with, and especially Latino voters, he did quite badly with. So again, he's going to have that unique struggle about him. Will he be able to have minority turnout higher in the general election? Kind of doubt it. He might even be a worse candidate than Kamala Harris with that regard because he won't be able to energize black voters. But yeah, if you aren't subscribed to the channel, I would highly recommend doing so already if you enjoy videos like these. But let's get right into this video. So the first state, Colorado, it's just a trending progressive state. Again, I think Pete Buttigieg would be quite easily able to win this by over 10% here. It's just a very liberal state at this point. Alaska, I just don't see Pete Buttigieg doing well in a rural state like this. I think Trump wins here by over 10%. Same with Iowa and Ohio. I just don't think Pete Buttigieg would get enough minority turnout in Ohio to keep it from going safe Republican. And Iowa, even though Pete Buttigieg did well in the Iowa caucus, it's just not enough to translate into the general election. I just don't see him doing well amongst populist voters in this state, which you definitely need to win here. You can't win it just by running a moderate campaign. We already saw that with Joe Biden. He ran a moderate campaign and didn't do good in Iowa. He still lost it by a pretty big margin. So, again, Pete Buttigieg, he would definitely fare worse than Biden. He doesn't have the incumbency advantage, and Iowa's just trending Republican. In neighboring Nebraska's second, he'll still win it, but only by a lean margin or so, just because this suburban district just has a hatred of Donald Trump. In the state of Texas and Florida, I just see both these states as likely Republican. Pete Buttigieg wouldn't be able to turn out Latino voters here, and he wouldn't do as well as Biden would among independents. I just don't see him really turning out those voters in either of these two states. In Virginia, I still think, honestly, he might only win Virginia by like 4%. I could definitely see him underperforming here because, again, he just wouldn't get good black voter turnout, which you definitely need to keep Virginia as a pretty solidly blue state. So I really just don't see him turning out enough voters to keep it as likely blue. He only wins here by 4. Kind of same thing with New Mexico. Kind of see him struggling with Latino voter turnout and just probably doing worse among independents than Biden would. He doesn't have the incumbency advantage, and his reign as transportation secretary has been quite negative, so I could see that dragging on him. Okay. In North Carolina and Georgia, again, it's just black voter turnout will be lower with him as the candidate, so he just does worse in both of these two states. Just don't see him doing good enough among black voters, just judging by his performance in the primary. He really wouldn't energize them. In New Hampshire and Maine, I think you'd do decent in both of these states. He would win Maine by a likely blue margin, but lose Maine second by a likely Republican margin. In New Hampshire, he would almost win it by a likely blue margin. I'll put it as a Pete Buttigieg win of +4 in the state of New Hampshire. He would definitely do decent here, but I just see some independents not being as willing to vote for him as they would for Joe Biden. Okay, let's see. Next few states. Nevada and Arizona, again, just with the Latino voters, I don't see him doing as well here. Just don't see him getting that turnout among them to make this state as a lean blue. And Arizona, I just don't see him winning either. I think he'd do worse than Joe Biden in this state. Again, he just has a more negative reign as that transportation secretary, and he doesn't have incumbency advantage. And he wouldn't turn out Latino voters either. In Minnesota, I still think he'd win it by a likely blue margin, but Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, he would for sure lose both of these states, and even Michigan, I think he'd lose by a tilt Republican margin. You see Biden struggling in the polls with Trump here, and Pete Buttigieg is pretty much guaranteed to do worse than Joe Biden. I really don't see how he appeals to any other voting groups as much as Biden would. So, again, I think Pete Buttigieg is just bound to underperform Biden in nearly every single state. And that includes Michigan, which I have as a tilt Republican flip. So Donald Trump has 312 electoral votes against Pete Buttigieg's 226. If you enjoyed the video, I'd highly recommend subscribing. And if you agree or disagree with the outcome in this video, let me know in the comments below. Do you have a different map of this matchup? I'll see, and we can compare. But other than that, I'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks so much for watching.